dare to enter Crow's Quill's books, where tales of forgotten realms and fearless souls come alive. Today's journey, Plato Wyngard and the Armour of the Gods, chapters 10 to 13 by Mark and James Lindsay. Will you uncover the truth hidden in the shadows? Chapter 10. 10 minutes across the range, Plato was satisfied that they had, at least for the time being, lost the others. I take it the Safari Club doesn't just do tours? Luther asked, as he reloaded his firearms. Teferi kept his eyes on the road. My call sign is Bushman, and I'm an agent for the Safari Club, an organization funded by several governments, Teferi said. The Safari Club. Really? Sounds like a load of bullshit. Nott muttered, as he searched his pockets for a cigarette. What's its purpose? Plato asked. To maintain stability in Africa, Teferi replied. So what were you doing with Thor? And why are you helping us now? Luther asked. I had been working undercover as Thor's go-to man, hoping to make my way up the chain, Teferi said. So, what exactly are we to you? Plato asked. Other than a pain in my ass, I'm not sure, Teferi said, annoyed. Why were you pretending to be mute? Nott asked. My credentials led Thor to believe I was ex-military, with skills in survival and tracking. My silence made them more susceptible to talking in my presence and hopefully trusting me quicker, Teferi said. Really? Nott asked. I was due to meet with the leader of BOM, Teferi said. BOM, Plato and Luther repeated. Birds of Memnon, Teferi said. He received blank stares back. In Ethiopian mythology, Memnon was a king who fought in defense of Troy, after falling in single combat against Achilles. His soldiers were said to have turned into birds and carried the body of Memnon back to Ethiopia. That's a great story, Nott said. The people who attacked us are extreme fundamentalists. They call themselves the Birds of Memnon, after this country's greatest leader. They want to return their country to its former glory, and they think pressures from neighboring countries, in particular Somalia, are destroying their culture, Teferi said. So what has Scimitar Industries got to do with this? Plato asked. They are nothing more than a dummy corporation with which others are helping BOM create chaos in this region, Teferi said. Who? Luther asked. The Soviets. Our intel sources think that by destabilizing Ethiopia, they can secure a foothold in the Gulf, Teferi said. Do they really believe by helping BOM they can do all this? Plato scoffed. BOM are just one of many groups they are assisting in Ethiopia. This country is ready to ignite, Teferi said. And now we're in the middle, Luther said. So what were you hoping to accomplish by meeting the leader of BOM? Plato asked. Eliminate him. I am one of many operatives trying to infiltrate these various organizations, Teferi said. And now we've blown your cover, Plato said. That you have, Teferi said with an annoyed glance. Look, I'm not saying that I'm buying what you're selling, but all this James Bond stuff, while interesting, has nothing to do with us. I have only one agenda, and that's to eliminate Malekai, Plato said. Well, like it or not, our missions have crossed paths and are now linked in purpose, Teferi said. How so? Plato asked. Because the leader of BOM is also your most hated enemy, Malekai, Teferi said. Chapter 11. Within the hour they had arrived at Teferi's destination, a small warehouse on the east side of Dembidolo, known for its markets and gold work. I take it this is your safe house, not Thor's, Plato asked as he held his rifle at the ready. Luther and Nott also had their weapons raised ready for anything. Yeah, it's not like we don't trust you or anything, Luther said. But we don't, Nhat added. This is my place. Nobody but you three know of it, Teferi said. They waited within the vehicle as Teferi quickly checked the building's perimeter. Once satisfied, he pushed up the large steel roller door, and Plato drove the truck inside. The three men climbed out of the truck cautiously and looked around the interior of the warehouse. So, tell me more about this safari club, Plato instructed. The inside structure of the building was a complete hollow shell. Nothing fancy, clay brick with no windows. Teferi's safe house was decked out with 2 military-style jeeps, racks containing an assortment of weaponry, and finally, a modest command post, charts, maps, mugshots, and communication equipment. I've been working out of here for months, alone, Teferi said, fatigue in his voice. Alone, I'm impressed, Luther replied, as he took a closer look at the photos on the large board, 2 in particular grabbing his attention. Malekai and Thor, you know. The others are lieutenants working within Scimitar Industries, Teferi said. Can you explain the connection between them and the birds of Memnon further? Plato asked. As I mentioned before, the Soviets had covertly set up Scimitar Industries, employing mercenaries from all over Africa, luring them with money and power. They no longer care who really employs them, Teferi said. And Malekai, is he involved with Scimitar? Luther asked. Yes and no. From what I've uncovered, Malekai is a different beast. He takes armament and some manpower from Scimitar. But as to his ascension as leader of BOM, that is a real mystery, Teferi said. Why are they kidnapping foreigners? Luther asked. Initially, I thought it was for the slave trade. The ones targeted fit the profile, young, blonde, and virgins, Teferi said. There was a grunt of disgust from the 3 men. However, my sources claim that these kidnappings are something else entirely. What? Plato asked. We don't know, Teferi said. Well, what do you know? Nhat asked. The birds of Memnon have been working on something else. Malekai and high-ranking members have been spotted in various northern cities of Ethiopia, Teferi said. They seem to be covering a lot of ground, Plato said. We were able to intercept a brief transmission, but to be honest, we were unable to make sense of it, Teferi said. What was it? Luther asked. We're close to finding the location of the armor of the gods, Teferi said. Armor of the gods. What the hell is that? Plato asked. We don't know. It could be code for something, Teferi said. Could be, or it could be something else entirely, Plato said. Are you thinking a connection? Luther asked. More than probable. I can't see why they would be diversifying too much. Radicals, terrorists, and freedom fighters always have an agenda, Plato said. Not to mention that the heat from the kidnappings would be enormous, so most of their efforts would be concentrated on this. I agree with Plato. This other transmission would be part of whatever Malekai and BOM are planning, Luther added. As much as I agree with you both, it still doesn't help with our current situation, Teferi said. Then we change our situations, Plato said. What have you got in mind? Teferi asked. So far, we've been playing into Malakai's hands. I think we allow ourselves to embrace the chaos around us, Plato said cryptically. Brother, I'm tired of playing it safe. Let's show these assholes what happens when you piss us off, Luther said with an evil grin. Should I be concerned? Teferi asked. Yeah, these 2 are going to ruin everything, Nhat said candidly and lit a cigarette. Chapter 12. 2 days later, Plato and Nhat were sitting in a small outdoor cafe in the city of Debre Marcos, 50 miles south of Lake Tana, the largest lake in Ethiopia responsible for supplying water to the Blue Nile. "What's taking those two so long?" Nat asked as he lit another cigarette. "Be patient. I'm sure there's a reason why they're taking so long," Plato replied, although he was clearly losing his patience as well. Another hour and several cups of strong Arabic coffee later, Luther and Teferi finally turned up. "About time," Plato growled. "Your friend needs to relax," Teferi said. "You know these whiteys?" Luther shrugged. "Hilarious. You should try sitting here for 3 hours drinking coffee in this dry heat. Not to mention fending off hawkers every 5 minutes," Plato grumbled. Teferi ignored the complaints. "Well, you'll be happy to know that we were successful," Teferi said. "You'd think that with the recent kidnappings, the tourist trade would be dead, but it's not," Luther said. "So, Teferi's contacts came through?" Nat asked. "Well, it still took us some time to confirm some things, but yes. It appears that of the 3 companies working out of Debre Marcos, Blue Nile Tours is another of these phony organizations funded off the books by Scimitar Industries," Teferi said. "What else do you know?" Plato asked. "They specialize in areas along the Nile and the islands within Lake Tana. They also have a tour leaving tomorrow," Teferi said. "We need the details of their tour," Plato said. Luther held up an envelope. "All over it, brother," Luther said with a grin. Posing as journalists, Plato and his team visited Armour Tours, the oldest company of its type in the region. Located 20 minutes out of town, Armour Tours might have been the oldest, but it definitely wasn't the biggest or the most successful. As they drove in to meet the owner, they noted the almost ramshackle state of the establishment and its transportation. As Plato was about to climb out of the vehicle, he was stopped by Teferi. "My understanding of the owner is that he is very old school," Teferi said. "What does that mean?" Luther asked. "It means that he will probably only want to talk to Luther or myself because of the color of your skin," Plato interjected. "I'm afraid so. This attitude probably explains why his business isn't faring so well," Teferi said. "That's right, Honky. Let us do the talking," Luther said. "Would it help if I wore a Black Power t-shirt?" Nat said. Teferi shook his head. "Don't worry. We'll be quiet and demure," Plato insisted. The owner didn't come out to greet them, and when they entered his office, they quickly realized why. The interior was in worse condition than the outside. Peeling paint, bald carpets, and yellowed ceilings. But what stood out immediately was the malty smell of the local beer, Tella. Plato noticed a small distillery over in the corner that obviously kept the owner lubricated all year round. The owner, Mr. Okar, was sitting slumped back behind a nearly empty desk, its only contents empty beer bottles. As the door behind them closed, Mr. Okar looked up with bloodshot eyes, a gaze of drunken belligerence on his face. "What do you want?" Mr. Okar growled. "Mr. Okar, my name is Meles. These gentlemen are from Western Airlines," Teferi said. "Never heard of them," Mr. Okar replied. Teferi ignored this and continued politely. "They are looking at partnering with a tour group in the region to offer package deals for their clients," Teferi said. "Is that so?" Mr. Okar said as he reached for his bottle. "That's correct. We've already spoken to Blue Nile Tours." "Blue Nile Tours!" Mr. Okar thundered, slamming his bottle down onto the table. "Is there a problem?" Luther asked. "You're damn right there is. Those assholes came in with their money and their fancy equipment and stole most of the business around here. They're not local then? Luther asked. Of course not. What would outsiders know of the game trails or must-see sites within the Amhara region? Mr. Okar demanded. You're not the first person to speak poorly of Blue Nile tours, Teferi said. What would someone like you understand about Ethiopia? Mr. Okar demanded, pointing at Plato. The owner of the company is white? Plato asked. Mr. Okar gave him a disapproving glare. That's what I said, didn't I? Do you know his name? Luther asked. Mr. Okar shook his head. I confronted him, though. Told that one-eyed bastard a thing or two, but he dismissed me, Mr. Okar said, clearly pissed at the memory. One eye, they all repeated. Yeah, he has one eye, Mr. Okar said. Does he run the tour? Luther asked. No, he's the boss. Too good to do the actual hard labor, Mr. Okar muttered. Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch, Teferi said quickly as they all departed the office, Mr. Okar's voice muttering something as they left. Back in the truck, Plato thumped the steering wheel in triumph. It's him. We've got the bastard, Plato said. Steady on, brother. This is great news, but we don't have him yet, Luther advised. Plato went silent, but nodded. You're right, but at least we have a solid lead on that son of a bitch, Plato said. What now? Not asked. Good question, Teferi said, and looked towards Plato. This is your show, Teferi said. Plato was silent a moment, deep in thought. As much as I want to kick some doors in, what we need now is subtlety. I don't want to spook Malekai, Plato said. We don't want that bastard to jackrabbit on us, Luther said. Jackrabbit? Teferi questioned. He means run, or at least that's what I think he means, Not said. Watch and wait, Plato advised. Plato and Luther sat in a hot apartment overlooking the docks on the southern side of Lake Tana. They had slipped into the city of Bahir Dar the night before, under the cover of darkness. Teferi's contacts enabled them to set up in their current location, keeping Plato's and Luther's presence secret. From the small apartment, they had a perfect view of the offices of Blue Nile Tours. The apartment was plain but neat, the squeaking of the rusty ceiling fan drowning out the buzzing of insects. Plato and Luther were seated near the window, armed with binoculars. This place is still better than Paris Island, Luther mused as he swatted a mosquito on his neck. Ah, the infamous home of the Marines. Sounds like a pretty place, Plato said offhand. Pretty. The things that crawl out of the swamp would eat you alive. And that's just the locals, Luther said. Quaint. I meant the weather. South Carolina would be a great place to conduct training, Plato said. Quaint. You're off your meds, Luther said. In Hereford it gets to single digits, Plato said. I heard it gets pretty cold at the SAS factory, Luther said. And that's in the summer, Plato said. Just then there was a rap at the door. Plato clicked back the hammer on his pistol and moved towards the knock-in. Sneaky, Plato said, just loud enough to be heard through the door. There was a brief pause. Jesus, Knott's voice replied back. Plato relaxed, holstered his pistol, and opened the door. Knott and Teferi walked in with a bag of roasted meat and fruits. I don't understand the reason behind the sneaky Jesus, Teferi asked. Just a random password, Luther said, as he reached for a container of the spiced meat. Any sign of Malekai? Knott asked. Plenty of movement, at least 3 identified faces from Teferi's board, but no Malekai, Plato said, a note of frustration in his voice. He'll turn up, Nat replied. But if he doesn't, we have to be prepared to follow the tour group, Plato said. Luther grunted. What? This kind of feels like we're using them for bait, Luther said uncomfortably. What would you suggest we do? How do you think they'd take a bunch of random strangers trying to warn them off? What would we say? We might very well place them and us in unwarranted danger. We can't join the tour. I'm sure Malekai has all his men very aware of our appearances, Plato said. So we just follow them? Luther asked. We do, but that doesn't mean we're not prepared for the worst. We just need the right vessel, Plato said. And on that, I think I have just the thing you're looking for, Teferi said with a grin. Chapter 13. The tour boat, a 74-foot Burger cockpit motor yacht, left dock early. Its 20 passengers were excited at the promise of a sunrise breakfast, a draw for the guests. Teferi was true to his word, having managed to procure a sizable but fast boat, a converted 38-foot World War II picket boat that looked worn and weathered, but would give them some anonymity on the lake. They traveled behind, conservatively not wanting to draw attention. The tour on the lake was aimed purely at sports fishing and bird watching around the islands. Plato and his team took turns spying on the boat and the surrounding waters. From what I've seen, the crew look like they're enjoying themselves, Luther said. They're probably not involved. If and when they're hit, the crew are most likely going to wind up dead, Plato said. He's right. On the previous tours, all the guides were massacred as well. They will be no different, Teferi said. Except, of course, we're going to be there to stop them, Luther said. They followed the yacht for 3 hours around the coast of Deck Island, set in the largest inlet in Lake Tana. The guests appeared to be having a great time, fishing, eating, and making merry, unaware that they were minutes from hell. There! Look! Nat cried and pointed. They were located on the northern tip of the island, 6 black inflatable boats now speeding towards the yacht. Plato picked up the binoculars and watched tensely as the boats drew nearer. They were at least a kilometer out from their intended target. Military-grade inflatable Caligari boats, Plato said. Caligari were often used because of their maneuverability and light inflatable frame. At 18 feet in length, they could easily accommodate 6 to 8 people and still maintain its zip and drive. Any sign of Malekai? Luther asked. No, but they're all masked up and ready for destruction, Plato said. Well, let's show them the real meaning of the word, Luther said, as he hefted a M1919 Browning machine gun onto the side of the boat, a custom-made mount, locking it into position. Laying the .30 caliber link across the feed tray, he slapped the latch down and cocked the heavy handle. Your call. Light those bastards up, Plato growled. You're the boss. Luther grinned and depressed the trigger. From across the water, the lead boat was ripped apart by Luther's heavy arms fire, the 8 men on board turning to red mist. The other 5 boats immediately broke contact, narrowly avoiding Luther's rounds. Screams from the yacht lent voice to the panic from the passengers and crew. The cruiser was built for luxury, not speed, and its attempts to escape were woefully unrealistic. With Teferi manning the wheel and Luther the heavy machine gun, that left Plato and Nat to try and pick off the kidnapping team, one at a time. This was proving harder and harder due to the erratic behavior of the assaulting crafts and the choppy waters. The Caligaris were also using the rocky outcrops from the island as cover to shield themselves from Luther's .30 caliber. "They're good!" Nat yelled out as he fired and missed a black-clad BOM soldier. "Yeah, well, in situations like this, I find persistence the key," Plato replied, and fired his M16 carbine, scoring a headshot for his efforts. The force of the round lifted the figure from the speeding boat and into the dark waters. "One down, a couple of dozen to go," Nat said sarcastically. One of the Caligari circled an outcrop of rocks, and the black-clad figure helming it turned in Plato's direction. His one good eye narrowed on the figures firing from the picket boat. "Plato," he growled, then issued an order over the radio to his other men. All but one of the boats started to coordinate fire on Teferi's boat. Plato and the others were good, but they were taken by surprise as several attacks converged on them from a variety of locations, though they did their best to take cover. "I'll take back my previous statement. They are good," Plato said, as the timber behind him was peppered with automatic rounds. "When you have a moment, Luther, can you return their fire?" Luther nodded back condescendingly. "Right on it," he said, giving a tiny salute from the cover of the bow. "I know this might seem impractical to ferry, but aim this barge towards the yacht," Plato said. "What?" Teferi yelled back. "They want a number of those passengers alive. We'll probably stand a better chance of not dying if we're either next to them or on that vessel. In the meantime, we'll do our best not to accommodate them," Plato said, anger starting to inflate his words. Teferi nodded and brought the picket boat around, pointing it in the direction of the yacht. The sudden change in direction gave them the respite they needed, the three men turning their arms back upon their assailants. Malekai could now see their intentions, and he made the decision that his boat would be the first to reach the yacht. "I think they have the same idea as you," Luther said, as he opened up on another craft, his arms pumping back and forth from the machine gun's recoil. "How are we going, Teferi?" Plato yelled. "I don't dare give her full throttle. This old girl wouldn't be able to handle." "We'll worry about that later," Plato ordered. Teferi nodded and pushed the throttle fully forward. Two of the Caligari craft had broken contact with Plato and were now opting for the same plan: get to the cruiser first. One was already boarding as the second was running diagonally to them. "Luther, can you do something about that?" Teferi said, pointing to the second boat. Without confirming, Luther swiveled the heavy gun around and locked on. From the angle of their boat, he was only able to pump a small burst. It was enough to hit its outboard and stop it in its tracks. Teferi, taking into account that the boat was shut down but its passengers still alive, decided to alter his course slightly. Teferi's boat plowed into the inflatable, bow first. The 8 black-clad crew members were pulled under the hull and either ripped apart by the propellers or drowned in the wake, their heavy equipment pulling them down. By this time, another Caligari had reached the yacht, and the soldiers were scaling the side. "Damn it! We've still got 2 boats carving us up and 2 on the yacht. We need to even things up," Plato growled. "Nat, get the M79 going," he ordered. It took Nat a moment to realize what he meant. Then his eyes went wide with understanding. "Ah, the wombat gun!" Nat yelled back, dipping into one of the crates they had packed on board and pulling out what looked like an odd-looking single-barreled shotgun, only it didn't fire shotgun shells, but rather 40mm grenades. Nat also grabbed several bandoliers of rounds and loaded a high explosive shell into the cracked open barrel and slammed shut the receiver. The two Caligari craft were swerving left to right, attempting to make themselves hard targets. Both craft held 8 operators. The helmsmen, highly skilled with their boats, and all able-bodied passengers were firing at Plato's picket vessel. It took Nat several long seconds to adjust the sight on the M79 and several more to set up a target. Both the momentum of the picket and the erratic patterns of the Caligari were making the task nearly impossible. Nat fired, and the water exploded to the left of the forward craft. "Shit," Nat muttered, as he ejected the shell and loaded another. 3 more produced similar results, only now they were all targeting him. Nat ducked as bullets flew overhead. "Luther! Some help, please!" Nat yelled, but Luther was having trouble with a jammed gun. Plato, in turn, was trying his best to pick off figures on the cruiser. Nat crawled low towards the stern of the boat as he loaded another round. Taking a deep breath, he jumped up and fired. There was a brief pause, then the lead Caligari exploded from the water, the concussive blast flipping the other boat upside down. Nat prepared another charge. "Forget them, Nat. We need all eyes on the yacht," Plato ordered. Nat nodded and joined Luther as they prepared their small arms, ready for boarding. "That was a 1 in a million shot, man," Luther said as he clasped Nat on the shoulder. "I think my eyes were shut," Nat admitted, and despite the tense situation they were experiencing, Luther roared with laughter. That seals today's tale in shadows. We hope Plato Wyngard and the Armour of the Gods has drawn you deeper into its enigma. Return soon to Crow's Quills books, where the next chapter awaits, whispering secrets yet untold.